and good to have you with us in this edition of the Urban Debate. Viewers, tonight we're going to talk about the real stories that should matter and you should be watching and discussing. Stories about the COVID vaccine, stories about the plasma therapy trials and what the results really show, and of course our economy, the massive GDP contraction with the GDP of almost a quarter getting wiped out in just the first 3 months of this year. But before we go to those crucial discussions, I want to take a few minutes tonight here on the Urban Debate to talk about what's going on between Kangana Ranaut and the Maharashtra government, or even the central government that's joined this entire controversy. Frankly, it's a game of farce, with one trying to beat the other at it. And everybody seems to be only interested in talking about this. I find it highly problematic that a state government has so much time and energy on its hands that it would rather look at how to hit back at an actor for her comments. Kangana says Mumbai has become Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, whatever that means, and frankly, it doesn't mean anything and it should be completely ignored. But instead of ignoring such ridiculous comments, the Maharashtra government takes it seriously. Minister after minister is making comments about it. During the assembly session, everybody just wants to talk about what Kangana Ranaut has done and how they have hit the pride of the people of Maharashtra. Not only that, as this fight has escalated, Kangana made more comments, clearly provoking the Maharashtra government. The central government then jumped in, providing Y-level security for her. A privilege that only a handful of people in our country have, at the cost of your money, has been given to an actor because of a verbal fight that's going on between her and a state government. And so the central government decides to step in and give her security. The ridiculous absurdity doesn't stop there. Then the BMC turns up at her home and demolishes a part of her house, calling it illegal. It may be illegal and BMC has all right to take action. But did they only discover this overnight? Were they sleeping all these years? Or did they know about it and waited for that exact opportunity when they would like to take revenge? When they would like to send across a message that if you mess with us, with the Aghadi, then we will hit back and harass you. BMC has done this in the past as well for anybody who's spoken up against its officials. Frankly, tonight I want to remind the Maharashtra government what is really important. And I'm going to, just by a few numbers, begin to make that point. Do you know that Maharashtra still tops the charts when it comes to COVID cases? Over a quarter of cases of the entire country come from the state of Maharashtra. As we speak, total corona cases in Maharashtra are 9.43 lakh. In the last 24 hours, we've registered 20,131 cases just in the state of Maharashtra. There have been 27,400 deaths because of coronavirus in Maharashtra, a very high number. Total cases in Mumbai, 1.58 lakh, and in the last couple of weeks, as we've unlocked, the cases have gone up. But that's not the focal point of the civic body either. In the fresh cases in Mumbai on a daily basis are 1,200, 1,300 cases that are being registered. Let's not even talk about the chaos that is going on in the city of Pune, where people are struggling to get a bed. In a hurry, they opened a jumbo facility that just turned out to be an entire mess and nothing more. If they are failing to do their job where it matters, are they instead going to spend their time fighting with a Bollywood actor on Twitter and via TV cameras? It's absolutely disappointing where the conversation and the narrative has come and what the focus of governments have become. And so for a few moments, I want to highlight that. And to help me emphasize on this point, we've got just 3 panelists joining us tonight. Mr. Javed Ansari, a senior journalist. Mr. Shailesh Gandhi, from a CIC, speaks up for the people, for what really matters to the people, and our managing editor, Vinay Tiwari, with us this evening. Vinay, let's begin with you. For the last few days, It seems all that matters to the top ministers and civic body officials in Maharashtra and Mumbai is Kangana Ranaut. Now, is that what their priority really should be? How do we change this?
Well, Tanvi, if this was a football game happening on a field and there were two opposite sides to it, proverbially, Maharashtra government has just scored the biggest self-goal that they could have ever imagined. And not only have they scored a self-goal, and not only is the opposition side, whichever they believe is the opposition, has scored a goal against them, they have now created a situation where somebody sitting in the audience in the spectator stand has also come onto the field and scored a goal. Because this is exactly what has happened with Kangana Ranaut's case. I'm astounded that a civic body that is India's largest, India's richest, governs a city which is India's corporate capital, India's financial capital, is part of a state that is India's largest industrialized state, and is probably the largest GDP contributor to the national GDP, is obsessed about settling scores by bringing down buildings which were deemed illegal, not overnight, as you rightly said, but have been questioned even in the past. Also, as it now appears, that even on the grounds of merit, there seems to be a legal hurdle that they've run into, where it seems there are High Court orders in the past which have prohibited any kind of demolition, and has happened in the absence of the owner, which is supposed to be the due process of law. Irrespective of the merits of this case, Tanvi, the Maharashtra government and the BMC should have realized that this is not a game of merit at all. This is a game of perception. If it was a game of merit, you would not have three chief ministers invoking or spending enormous amount of time invoking asmita and state pride. You would not have had a situation where the central government would have allowed the state exchequer's money to be spent on protecting an actor equal to that of the chief justice of this country. It would not have been a situation where you can do certain things. This is a game of perception. And in that perception game, I'm afraid BMC has scored a horrible self-goal, and it just reeks of a mindset where you're trying to settle scores and not exactly make a point. This is an issue which should have been ignored. This is not something that the BMC needs to obsess about. Some actor or any individual who's leading a public life has anything to say about a city, however obnoxious it may be, sometimes obviously needs to be ignored. It's not a comment that has any merit in it. I mean, I've lived in cities across India. I've grown up in different parts of the country, and I can tell you that Mumbai is certainly not POK. I mean, it's certainly one of the safest and the best cities you'll find in terms of the ease and quality of life. But having said that, that's not really important. Just by somebody saying it doesn't bring the city's character down. I am amazed that in the middle of the coronavirus, where Maharashtra is probably the worst hotspot, just next door to Bombay, Pune is the worst affected city in the country, you have civic bodies investing time of their officers and money of the exchequer in trying to do something that they can well do without. And if BMC has a public relations team or a team of image advisors, either they need to replace them or probably send them on a VRS, because that somebody is advising them very badly. This is absolutely god-awful in terms of optics of what exactly governance should be about. It cannot be about the way we've gone about handling this case. And the spectacle that we saw when Kangana Ranaut arrived at the airport is just adds to that whole narrative of what are our priorities really in trying to probably see through this country with the biggest and the worst crisis that we've had in terms of jobs, in terms of economy, and an epidemic, Tanvi.
Yes, and I mean, Vinay, let's just try and remind the civic body what is really requiring its attention in this city. So many times we've done stories about, the dilapidated buildings, the unsafe buildings, the buildings that run without the necessary permissions, haven't been checked in years. We're always told they are overworked, overstaffed, and it's impossible to do those checks. We've had an entire monsoon season come and go. I'm not even talking about all the additional work that falls on a civic body in times of a pandemic. And despite all of this, despite the fact that they need to focus on the infrastructure, on the safety of people, on the health and hygiene of people, on moving people out of places like Mahul and getting them to safer locations, on finding industries that are destroying the environment in this country, it seems that these overworked, underpaid BMC officials were sent off to destroy a part of Kangana's house. Now, if it is illegal, like you said and I said, by all means. But this whole thing, Mr. Shailesh Gandhi, of overnight reacting, one day landing up at the office, next day demolishing it, despite some current orders that stop BMC from doing this, just shows utter disregard to what their actual job is. And the only message the civic body needs to send is, Don't target us. You come after us, we will come after you. Our ego, the civic body's ego, seems to be bigger than anything else, Mr. Shailesh Gandhi.
I think there is a very deep problem that is getting unearthed, and I think the coronavirus will go away at some point in time, 6 months, 1 year later. But the virus that's eating into my entire governance and political structure may not go away so soon. And I think the whole nation needs to think about it. What happened today was shameful. There is no question about it. The political bosses who decided that should have at least shown some sophistication in what they were doing, even if they wanted, which is wrong. But even if they wanted to, they should have had some sophistication in the way they did it. But equally damaging, why are all the officials towing the line of the political bosses? They are bound. We are IAS officers. What the hell do I need IAS officers for if they cannot uphold the law, if they cannot stand upright? All these people bending and crawling before those with power? But, and this is something very worrying, it's not just a matter of perception. The worrying part is everywhere this is happening, in the central government and the state government. I have my 3 premier agencies going after one girl. And since 2 of them could not find anything, there's a narcotics issue now. All of these people are working as a matter of revenge, as a matter of anger, as a matter of hatred, which is spreading so fast, I don't know where my nation is going. I may be able to fight China, I may be able to fight the COVID battle. But if my people, if Indians become driven by hatred, driven by pettiness, this is indeed petty today what happened. But this pettiness has been around for a long time and everybody is hitting each other. We are becoming a nation that is being divided, which is not good for the nation. And I think that all political parties, the Shiv Sena, BJP, Congress, NCP, and all the others must sit down and think, are they making India an uncivilized nation? Are we going towards a situation where we become like a banana republic? Is this the nation that we want? This is a question we must ask. It's not just a matter of perception, Vinay. I think there's something deeper. And this hurt must show up. And this hurt is hurting Indians. And it will hurt India far more over the next few years unless we correct this. We need to correct this. The government should not be petty like this. But as you rightly pointed out, giving Y plus security to her was also an act of absolute, showing I don't care, I can do what I like. And that's what's happening to our political leaders. They are taking a position, I don't care. I don't care for people, I don't care for perception, I don't care if people think I'm doing wrong. I can get away because I'm in power. This needs to change. This is a democracy where it's supposed to be rule of the people, for the people, by the people. This is getting completely negated by all political parties. And I wish this would stop. Instead of each one dragging the other one down, we are seeing a very new law in the last 2-3 months in various things in Mumbai itself. It's a new law. It's a law that we should all be ashamed of. I'm ashamed as an Indian.
It is a new, it's a new law to the extent, Mr. Shailesh Gandhi, that is very obvious from the comments that are also being made from the other side. Now, she's always been a vocal woman, strong, bold, never thought twice about, who she may actually offend, and she's held on to her own convictions. That's all fine. But many of the tweets are intentionally meant, many of the comments are intentionally meant to provoke the Shiv Sena and the Thackerays and their followers and the followers of Shivaji, and that the politics and the parties seem to be falling for that. It's just become a game of farce where all your energy is going into this completely needless fight. I don't understand that. Look at what happened at the airport today, and when I was referring to it, if you see those visuals, viewers, maybe these people need to worry about the extent of joblessness in our country. The crowd that gathered there were Shiv Sainiks, we are told, or people who were protesting against Kangana. There were RPI workers, there were some fringe group workers who had gathered there. It was mayhem at the airport. As this actor
Depends on their
return to the
behavior
city? I
policy.
mean, is this really the priority for anybody, for any group, any institution? That becomes a big question. Mr. Gandhi, I'll come back to you, but let me bring in Mr. Javed Ansari. Mr. Ansari, is this a political game between the BJP and the Shiv Sena? Shiv Sena taking it on its ego because they can see Kangana Ranaut clearly parroting the lines that, you know, BJP would otherwise, from Ayodhya to Babar to POK, you know, things that have been said here.
Without an iota of doubt. Obviously, her scriptwriter is sitting somewhere in Delhi. There's somebody in Delhi who's directing it, and she's saying all the things that he could not. Having said that, this does not absolve the Maharashtra government of the self-goal or that they have scored of its absolutely misplaced priorities. Look, she's not in government, so therefore she doesn't carry the same responsibility as Mr. Uddhav Thackeray and his ministers do. They are expected to behave in a far more serious and sober manner. She's absolutely out of sorts in the kind of statement she's making. She is dancing to somebody's tune. But if I was in Mr. Uddhav Thackeray's place, irrespective of the provocation, I would have allowed her to stew in the absurdity of her own statements. I mean, calling Bombay POK, you know, where does the question of Kashmiri Pandits come in? Look at the way she's reacted to it. She's obviously doing it with a purpose. She's obviously doing it at somebody's instructions to needle the Thackerays, to needle Shiv Sena, to undermine and undercut their support base, and the Maharashtra government is foolishly walking into it. This whole period, we are witnessing a race. You know, this is a classic case of misplaced priorities, both on account of the Maharashtra government, the central government, and also the media. Everybody's race, there's a race to the bottom, barring some honorable exceptions. There's a race to the bottom. When a postman becomes par for the cost, then you can imagine that the bar cannot be set any lower as far as our fraternity is concerned. The central government, there are thousands of people who
Oh,
feel,
yes, absolutely.
You know,
Yes, go
yeah,
ahead,
allow
please.
me to finish. There are thousands of people who are, you know, who face a live and present danger to their lives. They are not even allotted a home guard. Here, Kangana Ranaut makes some outlandish, absurd statements, and she's given wise security. I hope Mr. Amit Shah will act with the same alacrity as far as others are concerned. You have a state government, instead of fighting Corona, it's focusing on Kangana Ranaut. This, you know, our economy has contracted by 24%, and those who know this subject better say it could be double come September. God forbid. If that happens, we're doomed. China is gobbling up territory. Our soldiers have died. If China doesn't, if we survive China, COVID will take us down. We are hemmed in from all sides. And what are our priorities? Our priority is Riya Chakravarti. Our priority is a postman. Our priority is Kangana Ranaut. Our priority is providing, you know, Y category. This is a theater of the absurd that is playing out before our eyes.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And which is why we thought it is important to bring this to the notice of people. I request viewers to take a step back, take a deep breath, and think about this. The more important issues that you may be getting distracted from. And if you want to talk about those issues, you stay on, because that's what we're going to be talking in just a couple of minutes from now. But very quickly also, Vinit Tiwari, on the point that Javed Ansari raised, why level security for an actor over a verbal spat she's had with the state government? Now, how does this even make sense? I mean, to me, I would have thought that if anybody had made a comment about any part of our country and called it POK, BJP would be the first one to get offended.
Yes, and look, if what you just said was ironical, there is one more irony. One particular fringe group that was there at the airport today had threatened to cut off the nose of another top Indian Bollywood star. No security was given to that person. Physical violence was threatened to that individual, and I don't think any government thought it fit to provide PSOs, and not 1 or 2 but 11 of them, to protect her life and safety. Look, we're now living in a situation where it depends on which side of the divide you are, and this which side of the divide can be dependent on whether the issue is a federal issue or a national issue. The only thing I want to remind our viewers is that the COVID virus, the coronavirus, does not respect federal boundaries. It does not respect geographical boundaries. Corona can spread anywhere. It can come inside your house and it'll hit you. It won't matter whether you're living under the governance of Maharashtra government or the Madhya Pradesh government or the Gujarat government. It will not respect boundaries. What it will respect is proper governance, care and regard. And you mentioned it, and I must also then say this to our viewers, that in just a few minutes from now, there are two very critical issues that we are going to bring up. Two big hopes against the war against COVID are now on a bit of a bump. The plasma therapy has now been questioned by the ICMR, where they're saying it's showing no benefit. And the Oxford vaccine trial, which was seen as a big hope, has been put on hold because one of the persons undergoing the trial has shown something adverse. And then at 9 p.m., of course, we are discussing the biggest thing, what Javed referred to, the 24% drop in our economy and how does it impact you. Those issues are way more important for people in governance, people in power, and of course the media, as Javed rightly said, because that is going to impact your life not only immediately, but for a long, long time to come. Tanvi.
Yes, absolutely. I'm out of time. We need to move on to the crucial conversations that must be had, that Vinay has just pointed out. But thank you, gentlemen, especially Mr. Javed Ansari and Shailesh Gandhi, for giving us your valuable minutes to talk about this. It's very important to remind people as well, and remind the Maharashtra government and the civic body, if they want, we can draw up a list and read it out, put it on social media, send it across to them, of crucial work that needs to be done, the interest of people that has to be kept in mind. And none of it really, whether it is the pandemic, whether it is the jobs crisis, the shutting down of businesses, the state of infrastructure, the dilapidated buildings, the falling bridges, none of it really has anything to do with what Kangana Ranaut has to say. Now, the government needs to decide what kind of message are they sending to people, that they get so offended and worked up about a actor's comment that they go after her, destroy her office? Or do they really have a serious task at hand and they realize that and they will address that? Thank you everybody for joining us on this conversation. Without wasting any time, I want to move quickly to the conversation about coronavirus. And viewers, there have been two setbacks for the world that have come. One, is a report from our own country about plasma therapy. The other one is about the vaccine trials that are going on. We're going to decode both of this to you and also find the silver lining in all of this for you as well. So stay on with me. Let me tell you first about the plasma therapy. Now, as you know, we've often discussed and explained what plasma therapy is, how it was being used to try and treat people who had been infected by COVID. So much so that multiple states in our country had begun this process. Delhi had even set up a plasma bank. People were running left, right and center, ready to pay, huge amounts of money to get a plasma donor. That's how seriously the common man had begun to take it. Now, the ICMR has said that they carried out a trial, a study across 39 different hospitals. And what they saw in this study is that it doesn't reduce mortality. So plasma therapy doesn't reduce mortality. Plasma therapy also didn't stop the transgression into the severe category. It didn't help COVID infected patients who then ended up becoming severe in their condition. So that being said, what does it mean? We're going to understand. The other big news has come from UK and the pharma company AstraZeneca, that along with the Oxford University was carrying out research for a vaccine. They were in fact conducting vaccine trials which had actually reached a very advanced stage. And they are being conducted in many parts of the country, including a part of it here in India, the Serum Institute. Now in UK, that trial has been temporarily put on hold because the reaction that one of the volunteers, one of the patients has shown needs to be studied and understood, and until that is done, the trial will not move forward in United Kingdom. But we are being told that the study that's being conducted and the trial that's been conducted for the same here in India will continue, because there have not been any concerns here, which also I find a little odd, but I will ask that question to the experts who are joining us. Two setbacks or disappointing pieces of news. What does it really mean for our war against COVID? We'll also talk about the other vaccine trials. Where have they reached? Let's say good evening to Dr. Suresh Kumar, Medical Director of LNJP and Principal Investigator for Plasma Therapy. Dr. Sarin, Director for Institute of Liver and Biliary Sciences, joins us this evening. And Dr. Sanjay Pujari, Director for the Institute of Infectious Diseases in Pune. He's also a member of the National COVID Task Force. Dr. Kumar, okay, let me just go across to Dr. Sanjay Pujari first. Dr. Sanjay Pujari, let's talk about the vaccine trial. And if you can help our viewers understand, what does this pause really mean? How far had that study come along? And how is it that if the same study in UK has been paused, the trials in India will still continue?
Yeah, so the information about what has actually happened is not published yet. It's coming from news reports. And if you look at the news report, there has been a temporary pause associated with an adverse reaction, which was reported in this trial in the UK. We don't have what kind of serious adverse event the patient had or the candidate had, and there is a monitoring body called the Data and Safety Monitoring Board, which has asked for that information. They also know whether the candidate, the subject was taking the vaccine or was taking the placebo, and they would be studying this to find out whether this is associated with the vaccine, whether this adverse event was associated with the vaccine. And this is a routine process in clinical trials. There is nothing new about it, and periodic review about safety, periodic review about efficacy of medications or for vaccines is often done in clinical trials. So this is nothing really new. The issue here is that they have asked it to pause. Perhaps, I don't know the reasons for it, but perhaps because this is a very important disease that we are trying to tackle. The vaccine platform that is being used is the recombinant vector vaccine, which is also a new platform. So they are being extra cautious and extra diligent in trying to assess the causality of this event, whether it is associated with the vaccine or not. So I think it is perfectly okay. I don't think it is a setback at all. It is just a routine clinical trial diligence, and we would have to wait for the DSMB report before we really explode, kind of sensationalize it that this is a setback or something. I don't think this is really a setback.
Okay, so let's try and understand then what is it, Dr. Sarin. So far, what we've heard from the company in the smaller statements that have been, given to various media organizations, they say that one of the volunteers, the patient, has fallen ill or is showing some symptoms that need to be studied and analyzed, which is why the trial there has been paused. Now, obviously, the world over, there has been a massive reaction, including, for the company's own stock itself and its future prospects, it seems. But under what conditions do we usually put such vaccine trials on hold? Help us understand what could it possibly be.
Any trial for either it is drug or for a vaccine has to be differentiated. Drug is given when somebody is ill. Vaccine is given when somebody is otherwise healthy. You have to be extra cautious in trials where the person is otherwise healthy, so you do not produce even a single bad sign or symptom of a disease. Now, the drug safety monitoring boards are there to monitor everywhere such trials. And the adverse effect of either a drug or a vaccine is graded, grade 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is death. So if there is something less than that and it is serious enough, it's a cause of concern. And that is the reason that even if there is one such incidence to a one healthy individual, I think it is a need to look back. How do you look back, and what are the limitations of the current vaccines must be understood. Like Oxford vaccine, the AstraZeneca vaccine, it has a virus called adenovirus, which is a very common virus, and it is the carrier for a protein which is of the coronavirus. So the carrier is the adenovirus, on which you take a portion of the coronavirus and it goes into your muscle or in your body system. Now, adenovirus has never been approved for any vaccine in human beings. So these are experimented now, like the Sputnik. I'm not only saying for Astra, the Russian vaccine, the Oxford vaccine, they're both using adenovirus, which is being tried. It's only used for rabies, if I remember. So using this vaccine with this and one side effect means that we need to be careful. We are trying it for the first time. So I think it is much better to look now than to have people have ill effects, side effects, and the side effects of not the vaccine, it is the carrier, the adenovirus, which can cause such side effects. So I think it's a bit of a setback for us. All of us were eagerly waiting for this vaccine. We do not know all the details why all of a sudden they have. But I would admire the company and the safety monitoring board that they have taken the challenge for the sake of safety. What we need in a vaccine is its efficacy. WHO has defined if you give a vaccine and it is effective in 50%, not effective in 50%, it is better than nothing. The second thing you want is availability, which India Serum Institute were very keen, and I think India can do it. But most important is safety. So even if you have one or two side effects, we need to correct our path. We need to improve our technology or see that we do not harm so-called currently healthy people. So I think it's a big step. It is a learning in science, but it puts all of us. I want to tell you something. Today, the best journal in the world is New England Journal of Medicine. It publishes that face mask is a partial vaccine in a manner that you inhale very small quantities of the virus somehow, and that is what the vaccine is doing. So if you have not the dose enough to cause virus infection, but very, very small, tinisimal amount, it's like a vaccine. So till the time you get a safe vaccine, I think mask is there, but for vaccine, we will have to wait. And once DSMB holds a vaccine, it takes a hell lot of time. I do hope there are no serious concerns and we get back on the path for a good vaccine and the Indians can produce that vaccine for the world.
Okay, so here is my next question, and maybe Dr. Pujari, you can come in on that first. If it's the same vaccine that is being tried out in various parts of the country, obviously to see how different people react to it differently, and the same vaccine that AstraZeneca and Oxford University have developed and are researching is also being used in trials in India, why are the trials on India not on hold? Isn't it the same combination, the same mix that we are talking about? Dr. Pujari, can you hear me? Okay, I'm not too sure if Dr. Pujari is able to get my audio. Let me take that question to Dr. Sarin. Meanwhile, we'll try and fix that audio. Dr. Sarin, this is a point many people have raised. Why is it that the India trials for the same vaccine are not on hold?
Well, I'm sure the communication would go on to the Drug Controller General or to the company. It is ethically important that once there is a report from the parent company and one DSMB board and you're holding it, I think the batches, the product should be same. I think for the safety in the country, we should wait for a while. And although there is no report from India, but so what? There can be the first one. So it would be wise, that we don't encounter any side effects in our patients, and there is no harm in waiting for a few days and then take the next participant. Even the volunteers would be, a bit scared. So I think we should wait.
Okay. Let me see if Dr. Pujari can hear me now. Dr. Pujari, is my audio coming through? All right, we're just going to get through to Dr. Pujari in just a bit. Here is what we're talking about. The AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine trial has been put on hold in United Kingdom. That was not the only place where the trials were being conducted. They are being conducted in multiple parts of the country, including in partnership here with the Serum Institute. The Serum Institute itself is actually looking at multiple vaccines and partnering with associations and research houses from across the world, this being one of them. But they have told us that they have not put anything on hold so far. They haven't witnessed any problem with the vaccine itself or the trial that is being conducted here. And so the trial here carries on, which is what, what you heard what Dr. Sarin said. Many other experts are also pointing out. Quick check. There are 145 vaccine candidates currently across the world in preclinical evaluation, 34 candidates which are in clinical evaluation phase. But of course, we don't know if any of them will get through by the end of this year or maybe mid next year, and how soon will we have a vaccine. And I always use this as an example. Science may be different today than it was a few years ago or even a few decades ago, but it actually took us 47 years to find a vaccine for polio, 36 years to find a vaccine for yellow fever, 12 years to find a vaccine for influenza, and 9 years to find a vaccine for measles. We are hoping we find a vaccine for COVID within a year. If I can come to the second point, Dr. Sarin, which is about the plasma therapy, something that while ICMR didn't say is a short solution or a cure for coronavirus, it did give permission to various states to go on and use plasma therapy. It now seems that the trial study has shown that it doesn't reduce mortality and it doesn't even stop the case from getting into a severe condition. How do we read this new study that has emerged?
Two parts. One is to just say that globally, the solidarity trial for vaccines is on, where we will have 9 major candidate vaccines. They're all being together. Now, coming back to the plasma therapy, it's an important, we all respect ICMR. It's one of the most prestigious institutes, and they did a large trial with 464 participants. Those who had moderate disease, means their oxygen levels were less than 93% and had shortness of breath with respiratory rate about 24. So when such patients were taken, 200, nearly half of them got the plasma and nearly half did not get anything. What they showed was that at the end of 28 days, there was no difference in those who survived versus those who died. Nearly 14% died in both the groups. And therefore, people thought that, well, this is a negative trial. I would say if you ask for, you fire in the air and you say, my bullet will reach the moon, it's little difficult. What is important is to understand the small details in this trial. The plasma trial, those who received plasma in this ICMR study, which is done in 39 centers, shows that people had a reduction.
Dr. Sarin, we seem to have a bit of a interruption there in the audio line with you. My apologies. I'm going to come back to you. The perils of work from home for all of us and using technology is also that sometimes the technology doesn't work. So my apologies. Let me just try and see if Dr. Pujari can hear me.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Dr. Pujari, we were talking about plasma therapy, but before I move on to that conversation, I wanted to ask your view as well on this. Help us understand, if the trial has been put on hold in UK, why is the trial for the same vaccine by AstraZeneca and Oxford not on hold in our country?
Well, I'm not really qualified to answer that question because there are regulatory people who may be looking into this. That is one issue. The second issue, of course, is there are different phases of the trials going on. For example, in the UK, if it's a phase 3 trial which is going on, in the India, it may be a phase 2/3 trial going on. So the protocols may be different. So honestly, I can't answer that question quite rightfully, but I think
but pardon my ignorance, Dr. Pujari. Pardon my ignorance, Dr. Pujari. I am just thinking about it from a layman's point of view, that the composition, the vaccine mix itself, would be the same, whether it's in phase 2 or 3. And if there is a problem that needs to be understood on that vaccine composition, shouldn't everything be on hold?
Yeah, so ideally, yes, but we don't know the details of what has really happened. Those details and it is studied. I think it would be too premature to say so, but ideally, yes.
Okay, point taken. We don't know too many details. Maybe that's why, perhaps that's something that even the regulator, ICMR, also need to look into. If the Serum Institute says they are going to continue with the trials for now. Let me also go across to Dr. Kumar, who's with us. Dr. Kumar, thank you for speaking with us. Dr. Kumar, help us understand this plasma therapy study that was carried out across 39 hospitals. How should we read the findings of it?
You see, we did the plasma trial first time in Delhi along with Professor Sareen. We did the pilot study initially, and then a very big study is going on. 200 patients on plasma arm and 200 patients on the standard arm, standard therapy. We have analyzed the data of initial pilot study that it is very useful in moderately sick patients. It is not useful in those patients where we have the multi-organ failure, patient is already on the ventilator or on the dialysis. So these patients, when we enrolled, their saturation was low, their respiratory rate was high, and they have the signs of respiratory failure. And many of these patients recovered, but as I told you that there is no mortality benefit in seriously ill patients, very severe COVID patients. We agree with that. But it is definitely useful in a moderately sick patients. And many of the studies have shown that as remdesivir is having no mortality benefit. Yes. We have the remdesivir with us that only helps in the early recovery. But there is no mortality benefit with the remdesivir also. And I fully agree with Professor Sareen's view that there are many trials going on in the USA, and it is not the first line therapy. It is one of the mode of the therapy to help the COVID patient, as we don't have the effective vaccine. As you are discussing that Oxford vaccine, because one patient have developed some problem because of some hypersensitivity or allergic reaction, and it is stopped in UK. So this plasma trial is a stopgap arrangement. Hello, can you hear me?
Okay. No, but I'm just trying to understand, Dr. Kumar, that you said that if there is a severe condition of a patient, plasma therapy is not going to work, which also means that it doesn't reduce mortality because you've already reached that state. When you say in a moderate condition, it can be used to treat people, for a layman to understand, what does moderate condition mean?
Moderate means there are three categories. One is the mild disease, another is the moderate, where the saturation of oxygen is less than 93%, or respiratory rate is more than say 30, and patient have the pneumonia in the X-ray, viral pneumonia in the X-ray. Any two of them constitute the moderate illness.
Okay. Dr. Sareen, I'm sorry I interrupted you when you were making your point about the plasma therapy. Go ahead, please. We couldn't hear you properly at that point.
Well, I'm happy Dr. Suresh is there. I will first analyze the ICMR study. There are 464 patients enrolled, and nearly half received plasma, and the other half did not receive anything except the best supportive care. Now, the end point means what is the efficacy was that people survived 28 days. So the number of people who died, whether they received plasma or they received no therapy, were nearly 14%, not different. But to wait for 28 days for a treatment which is given today or tomorrow just for 2 days, and then you wait 28 days, is not justified, because COVID is a multi-organ, multi-system disease. बहुत सारे systems खराब होते हैं. So what is important is to see what is the short-term benefit. And the ICMR study confirms our data. ICMR study says that the shortness of breath was markedly decreased by those who received plasma. More importantly, breathing rate, breathing difficulty was decreased by day 3 and day 5. They also show, very importantly, that those who received plasma, 14% more, 68% cleared the virus, while 54% of those who got nothing cleared the virus on their own. So giving plasma was like antiviral. What happens in this plasma? You have neutralizing antibodies. These antibodies are proteins which are taken from a person who has recovered. Now, these antibodies and these proteins, when they are given to a patient, they will bind the virus, clear the virus. So the ICMR study shows that 14% more people got the viral clearance by day 7. The study also shows, very importantly, fatigue. People who received plasma had much better relief in fatigue. So 4 things the plasma did: the breathing rate, the severity of breathlessness, the requirement for oxygen, fatigue, and importantly, the viral clearance were all achieved. And all this occurred in 7 days. And this is exactly what our small study with Dr. Suresh and his institute in first 29 patients showed. We also showed that breathlessness decreases, the stay in the ICU is decreased, and the patients feel better. But yes, we all understand that it is not the treatment. It is not that this is a magic bullet and you fire and you will get the patient out. And patient selection. So what does the ICMR study convey to us? It doesn't say stop using it. It only says that, well, it is on your discretion. Like in America, 65,000 people have received plasma therapy, and this has been approved as an off-label therapy by FDA. So when FDA has approved, and they showed that about 35% reduction in mortality, I don't actually agree that mortality can be decreased just by giving plasma. So the important part is that and it does not increase the side effects. So I still feel it has a place, but very important in science is one study does not answer everything. I'm not counting on any shortcomings. We all respect ICMR and its work. 39 centers joined across India. This is salutation to them that they were able to collect so many centers to do a good study. This is the beginning of a connected India. But this study also shows many more things have to be done in the trials related to plasma. So to summarize for general people, I would still say your physician, the timeliness, whether the plasma is given in first 24 hours or after 3 days. If you give it early, to select your patients correctly, maybe in your group of patients, in a very careful, very intelligent physician, plasma therapy has a place. And what else do you have? You don't have anything else which is as effective. So for viral clearance, for decreasing the toxicity, decreasing the severity of the disease, I still feel plasma therapy needs to be more closely monitored. More studies are required. As Professor Suresh said, there is another study under his guidance, as well as with the Rajiv Gandhi super specialty with Dr. Shergill and Dr. Vikas. 400 patients will be enrolled, and this study is ongoing. So I want to re-emphasize plasma therapy does not decrease mortality, but yes, it gives you an option of choosing correct patient to decrease severity, and these people can improve. And you need much larger studies to give a mortality benefit. It is not possible just by 200 patients in each limb to give. The best part of plasma therapy is, and what we have been able to do, is to provide it free of cost. The plasma bank at both ILBS and LNJP provides free plasma, no cost. Other drugs cost. And it also connects people to donate, voluntary donation. It makes those who have given plasma become a champion and become party to the countries fight against corona. So I think plasma banks are a huge success in that way. They provide free of cost, all blood group plasma. And I think there is a scope for further trials in plasma therapy. It actually gives you those proteins which are very specific.
So that's very encouraging. That's very encouraging, Dr. Sarin, what you've said. If I may just pick that up and go back to Dr. Kumar on it, Dr. Kumar. So, I may sound like ignorant, but frankly, we don't understand these things so well as you all do, which is why you are the experts and we're the ones wondering and asking the questions. But what happens even when it's the treatment drug like remdesivir or a plasma therapy alternative? People begin to assume that this is a sure shot solution. People have gone overboard, running around trying to get a plasma donor, trying to get this drug, paying thousands and thousands of rupees in black market to get their hands on it, because they believe that if they get this drug, that will for sure treat their loved one. Will it be correct to say, Dr. Kumar, that while plasma therapy can help certain patients, it doesn't help everybody, and we need to first get it from an expert whether a certain patient can benefit from plasma therapy? Do we know enough for that to judge beforehand whether a patient will benefit from plasma therapy?
You see, we have this cytokine profile of each patient to whom we give the plasma therapy. We have the IL-1, IL-6, other markers like TNF and ferritin. If we find that this cytokine profile shows that this patient is going to benefit, definitely we give them. If these markers are not elevated, that means the patient is not in cytokine strong, then we may consider alternative therapy like remdesivir or other antiviral drugs. But definitely we need to choose the patient carefully. We need to do the careful examination of the patient, workup of the patient, and see certain tests which guide us that this patient actually can be benefited by plasma therapy. As Professor Sarin has said, that this is not a magic bullet. It is not going to help in all patients, but it is definitely going to help in selective patients where it is indicated. And we have the designed protocol as per the ICMR guidelines, where most of these patients are actually benefited, and these patients are clearing the viruses, and their overall well-being is much, much better. Their symptoms, their body ache, their relief of symptoms, their breathlessness, and their overall well-being is very, very much better in plasma group than in the control. This we have shown in the earlier study also, and we have observed in last around 100 patients so far, which we have done with the help of ILBS.
Okay, in fact, I am just going to read this because it's just come in. Our reporter Ayushman has just sent a copy of this show cause notice that has been issued now by the government, and at an appropriate time, just as we were talking about it and I was asking this question, the Central Drug Standard Control Organization has issued a show cause notice to the Serum Institute, and the notice actually says that it has been widely reported in national and international media that the sponsor of the aforesaid medicine, which is the phase 2, phase 3 clinical trial for the coronavirus vaccine by AstraZeneca, has been paused. The ongoing trial of the vaccine as a volunteer developed an unexplained illness. And then the letter goes on to say that the Serum Institute of India has still not informed the Central Licensing Authority regarding the pausing of the clinical trial carried out by AstraZeneca in other countries, and has not even submitted the causality analysis of the reported serious adverse event with investigational vaccine for continuation of phase 2-3 clinical trial in the light of safety concerns. So they are asking them to explain what exactly has happened abroad, what has happened in United Kingdom, why has it been stopped, and they are then asking that tell us why the permission that was granted to you should not be suspended pending patient safety being established. So yes, the government is asking this question, Dr. Pujari, that if the vaccine trial has been stopped in United Kingdom, why aren't you telling us what's going on? Can you just explain to our viewers what the process is for vaccine trial permissions? I mean, if it is a study being conducted by Oxford and AstraZeneca and Serum Institute is partnering with them, what permissions do they require here in India to carry out those trials?
Yeah, so
Dr. Pujari.
normally they have already, so normally they have already got an approval from the drug regulator in India, that is SIDSCO, to carry out this trial. Now, you have to remember that this is a global trial, and when you have the country, those amounts are reported to site studies across drug regulators across this site. So essentially what the drug controller in India is doing is asking for
Right,
this
Dr. Pujari,
additional data which I have
unfortunately, we've
mentioned
got a
before.
really bad line with you today. I hope you're able to fix this problem the next time and we can have a detailed conversation, because I don't think the story is going away anytime soon. We will wait to see what Serum Institute has to say. But thank you so much to all the three big experts who joined us, Dr. Kumar, Dr. Sarin and Dr. Pujari, for joining us. Viewers, you've heard our experts. Let me just quickly summarize it for you. As far as the vaccine trial is concerned, yes, when there are adverse signs that the volunteers show during the trial, it needs to be paused to understand what's gone wrong, because this is a vaccine, it's not a cure, it's not a treatment drug, it's supposed to stop you from getting this infection. So if something's gone wrong, that needs to be analyzed, and now we know that that will also be looked into here in India. The government is asking questions of the Serum Institute. As far as the plasma therapy is concerned, just like the remdesivir drug, this therapy is also not a short solution for every patient, every COVID patient. For each patient, the treatment for now, however it's being figured by the doctors, will be different. Some drug may work for you, some therapy may work for you or may not work for you. The best thing to do is follow the doctor's advice. And of course, like our expert said, we perhaps need a lot more study. COVID is a new virus for us. There isn't enough study yet still, and as we progress months and years later, we will of course find more data and more details about how to battle this virus. Quick break. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Urban Debate.